It's definitely working on YouTube. YouTube's the easiest one.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of made for that at this point.
There we go. Go live.
Hey.
Go live.
Nice.
Okay.
Nice.
We are officially live at Peculiar Conference 2024 here in Baltimore, Maryland. I'm with Russell Klimas. How are you?
I'm doing well, man. How you doing?
Doing great. Did you guys hear any rapping? We were trying to figure out if you heard any kind of beatboxing before this happened.
You got to do some sound tests, you know?
Let's talk about this rivalry between the camera brands. So this is at all not sponsored by Sony, but Sony, obviously the best camera brand out there.
I mean, if they had multiple exposure, then I would agree.
Yeah. Oh, dang. That's right. That's right.
That is my one beef. And every time I get a chance to like talk to a Sony rep or complain, I do. Because I'm like, well, I had to buy a whole new camera.
Are they doing anything for the multiple exposure?
Not that I'm aware of. I think, so what they used to have, it's not Imaging Edge. It was before that, whatever it was. I can't remember off the top of my head. But it was in the A7R2 and everything basically before that. And it was an app that would allow you to do light paintings, multiple exposures. You could do, you know how like normally if you wanted to do a long exposure shot of a waterfall, you would need like an ND filter. They had an app that could literally just do it for you in the camera. You didn't need an ND filter or anything. And it's like, but they're just like, you know what? Nobody likes these things, so we're just going to get rid of them. And I'm like, you guys are crazy.
Oh, man. Oh, man. Now, tell me, why multiple exposures? What are you up to with that?
One, so everything that I like to do with photography is always in camera because the technical side of photography is what I enjoy most. And so with Sony's, can you do a multiple exposure? Technically, okay. You just do one really long exposure and you might expose twice in the same. So kind of like film days, except with film, you can like move around and do stuff. And you can, well, even then you don't really know what your frame is going to be or what it's going to look like. You're kind of just hoping for the best. But what I'm doing right now that I have a Canon camera is basically how do I explain this in ways that make sense? Is you can do multiple exposures in a Canon camera up to 9 in the same photo, right? And the reason that I wanted to do it with a Canon R5 is that it keeps the photos in the raw image format. The reason that I need it in a raw image format is especially with AI coming into the fray and everything, is that there's certain competitions now where like they need the raw image to prove certain things. And so for me, because we have in-camera artistry like a WPPI, is that I need to make sure I have a camera that can give me a raw image. What's nice with the Canon R5 is it gives me the combined image of the multiple exposure as well as the separate images raw. So you can play with it in post if you want to.
Oh, wow.
Which is cool. And the whole reason for that is I've had this concept for a while of different ways of creating like depths of field or combining two different images together by using light painting techniques, where the idea, so to bring it in with light painting is, so the camera captures light, right? It doesn't capture darkness. So if I block off a certain part of my camera, it's not going to capture that part of the image because it's in darkness.
Makes sense.
Right? Then what you'll do is if you want to say, we'll do a really simple example, is if say you just put like, you cover literally like the vertical half of your camera, right? And I've done this before by using like a UV filter, and then you can just like switch that over to the other side. So you don't have to use two, whatever. And the thing is, if I expose one side and then I switch it over and I expose the other side, it will allow me to have like two perfectly clean images and not your typical multiple exposure where you have like two mixed and you can tell that they're mixed. With these, you can't tell. And that's kind of the joy for me. And then it's like, okay, cool. I understand the concept. How can I push that? Because depending on your f-stop, it's going to change the look. Depending on how hard that line is going to be in that separation. So if you're at a lower f-stop, it's going to be a lot softer and allow for an easier merge. But if you want to see the shape within the stencil or however you're covering it, then you have it at a higher f-stop. So it gives you a completely different look in that aspect. And then what you can do is from there is what I've done is I've built a frame that I have in between my subject and my camera, and I can switch in different stencils within that. So as long as you have, generally I find a 50 millimeter works best to fill the frame right, because everything else just doesn't seem to work as well. And then you can just switch in different stencils, like the inverse of those stencils, and it really allows you to create different shapes. And again, you can do up to 9 multiple exposures. And so say you had, 9 different windows. in the shot. And then you can, for each one, you can have a different scene. And so you can create like a mood board or whatever, all in camera. And like, that's where the joy is for me.
There's a film camera, 35 millimeter.
Mhm.
As I mentioned before, I love toy cameras.
Mhm.
There's one that was called the Action Sampler, I think it was called, and it allowed you to take a 35 millimeter, and it had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 exposures. So you
Okay.
go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you have 6 different actions in one tiny little 35 millimeter.
Wow.
That's what it makes me think about. But that's at the end, you get a raw file that has everything, right?
Mhm.
Just one single image.
Mhm.
That's good. That way you can tell in the competition that this is actually done in camera.
Yep.
Nice. Light painting. Tell me a little bit about what you're teaching today, not later today, here for
Yeah.
light painting.
So we're going to be mainly focusing on, I'm going to be going over for, beginners as well as to advanced, just to kind of cover the whole gamut. And there will be certain things like understanding what like long exposure noise reduction is in your camera, because most of the time that's turned on naturally, and that's not something you generally want. Don't ask me what it's used for. I have no idea. I'm like, I don't ever use this. I don't want this ever. I mean, obviously it's in the name, but I'm like, if you expose right, it doesn't matter. So at the end of the day, really, when it comes to light painting, if you spend a considerate amount of time in there, you become a master at understanding the exposure. Like I can look at my environment, my room, whatever I'm doing, and be like, oh, cool. I want my settings to be this, this, and this. And I'm right 99% of the time just
Nice.
because of what it is. You'll be going over like how ambient light's going to affect it, all these different tools that you can use, whether you can buy or make yourself. You get completely different effects. There's a lot of things like using a iridescent makeup bag that you can create really cool effects that you can just, go to H&M or wherever and get, and you can use that as a light painting tool. Just different flashlights. It's going to be mostly geared towards portrait photography. I might throw in some drone stuff if people like to do landscapes or you want to get just more creative in that aspect. But that's what largely it's going to be. It's just different tools. The idea of pretty much expanding people's idea of what you can do in camera is my whole goal, because we are so reliant, or society feels like it's so reliant on using Photoshop or now AI or whatever to create stuff. And there's so much joy in making something physically that can't be explained otherwise.
I would agree. Definitely the joy of getting the exposure right on camera. My excuse is I'm not that good with Photoshop. So
Same.
so I do fall into that. Let me see. I forgot that I'm live streaming, so I should probably check to see if anybody's leaving any comments or anything. Oh, somebody joined.
Nice.
Awesome. Hi. Welcome. If you guys have any questions for Russell, feel free to put it out there. Did you not remind me, did you get a Guinness record for the drone?
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. It's kind of a fun story. So, okay. So first of all, if you don't know anything about how Guinness World Records work, it can be a lot. And it can be a lot, or it can be a little. If you want to fly somebody out to go and like be an official judge for Guinness, it will cost you $10,000. So that's the easy way.
Wow.
The hard way is basically just getting a lot of photographic evidence, video evidence, and then you also need at least 2 people who are like quote unquote professionals. So like, I don't know what that means for like eating the most blueberries in a minute for having the 2 professionals there, but like you need them. So whatever that means. But so for me, for that process is one, there wasn't a record set. So I'm like, okay, cool. I went back and forth with them, and they're like, they get back to you eventually. It might take a couple weeks. There might be correspondence for a while. Probably took me around like 6 months to do it altogether just because of correspondence. But so I use a Mavic Pro, and then I use a program called Litchi. And that basically, so I came up with this technique where you use Google Maps and you can trace out an image on Google Maps.
Okay.
And then you can, with the file types and stuff, you can play in between that and Litchi, and it will fly that path that you made, and putting it simply. And there's some easier ways now where you can actually, people have made some utilities where if I put in like an SVG into the utility file, it'll automatically trace it for me. So you don't even have to do it by hand anymore for a lot of that stuff, which is nice. Depending on what you're doing, we can go from very simple to very complex, very fast, where that won't work. But besides the point. So I didn't know what to do. And I was like, you know what? I love Pokemon. So we're just going to go with Gengar because it's an easy shape to make.
It is.
And it was under 99 waypoints. And the reason that I needed to be under 99 waypoints at the time they've changed it a little bit now, but is if I'm gonna have to do this run a bunch and I have like 4 to 5 batteries, I need to do a shape that I can be done quickly and not super complex. So for Guinness, they were like, you can't just do like a square, right? And like they're like, you made it, you did the thing. Like, no. But I think it had to be like over 13, I want to say it was 13,200 square feet, I want to say. It might be less than that. I don't remember off the top of my head. And so basically is I planned it out, and then I got people from my photography guild at the time to come out and like, hey, I'm going to do this. You guys want to come and like see me set a Guinness World Record? Cool. And so you have to do photographic evidence, you have to get video evidence. And so I just gave them everything I could. So for me, it was I did a video showing the drone going in the sky. I have the photo, and I have the screen recording on my phone so they can literally see in real time like the distance and how high it is and everything. So I'm like, here's all the evidence that I can give you.
Right.
The best part is what I hadn't planned for is I had the batteries, I had everything, but I think it was the remote for the drone. By the time we were almost done, like I was doing the last run to get the final thing, it was like, hey, I'm on low battery. And I'm like, oh no. So my friend Phil was like, hey, I have an external battery in my car. I'm like, please go get it. And so like Phil kind of saved the day because
Nice.
he had that external battery so we could get it done. And then I sent it off to Guinness, and they're like, here is your little piece of paper. And
Nice.
I'm like, nice.
That's awesome. I didn't know that. I didn't know they required all that. And was this in Japan, or what was this at?
No, this was in Colorado Springs.
Okay, nice. Nice. Let me see who we have. Oh, thank you for joining. Thank you for joining. This is all new. This live streaming
Yeah?
stuff. Yeah.
Hell
Never
yeah.
done it. Never done it. And supposed to show comments here. Oh well.
That's okay.
It's all good. It's all good. Um oh, real quick, how do
Mhm.
people find you? They want to see your work?
Yeah. Easiest place is going to be on my Instagram at Light and Lens. That's LENSE. And that's where I post most of pretty much all my photography stuff. I had some AI stuff at some point, but now I've kind of switched that to a separate account just to keep them separate. But that's where I'm going to be pushing a lot more photography stuff, even some stuff I'm going to be doing here at Peculiar Conference. And yeah, so that's where I would go because that's where I'm most active.
Nice. We were talking AI earlier, and you were showing me some mind-blowing things that you can do with photography, animating it. Where do you see yourself incorporating that in your work?
I have good news and bad news for photographers in general. Is that so? My main focus in the AI space right now is using it within the fashion industry. And if you're not going to be aware, it's something that's going to happen no matter what. Is in the commercial industry, I can train real life clothing, like this shirt, what you're wearing, whatever. I can give AI that. I can then make a fake person. I can put it on them, and it looks 100% real, and you wouldn't know any better. So that's going to change the commercial photography vastly. I've already been talking with like brands in France and stuff like that, and working with people there and doing that. And it's just like, yeah, like at the end of the day, as much as it sucks, it comes down to the bottom dollar. And they want to save money. And if they don't have to ship the clothing, hire the photographer, get the studio, get the makeup artist, get the model, all that, that's going to save so much time because the human element is always what costs the most.
Makes sense. It does make sense. And I'm trying to think, in regards to other industries like wedding or etc., where do you think AI is going to play a part?
So, I mean, when it comes to events of any kind, like, could you do it with AI? Sure. But that just takes so much more time. So, like weddings, events, those I would say are pretty safe unless you're trying to either say you haven't shot an event before, like this is the first one, you might make some fake images for that. So I can see that, or make some fake video because we're not there yet, but we're pretty darn close with video. There's different ways where, like, you can, for example, you can take an image if you're using like Kling AI, for example, and then say, like, they have this thing called Motion Brush. Runway has it too, but I think it works a different way. And I can say, cool, let's say we have a dog that's looking this direction. I can say, cool, I want the dog to move this way and then move back this way. And then it will fill the frames and like make it so that the dog can move those different directions. And it's like, that's wild that you can do that with an image.
That's wild indeed. Wow. Here, can you tell me a time when let's go back real quick to the light painting, because can you tell me a time that is memorable to you where you thought that maybe the image wasn't going to come out, but at the end it surprised you?
Yeah, I can actually give you a whole situation. So I think it was during 2020, I have some friends who have this sound and lighting production company, and they weren't doing anything because of 2020. And so I had set up a date, like my friend Hannah, she's going to come down. We have this big parachute dress. It's going to be awesome. And then I guess I miscommunicated and Hannah couldn't be there. So I was like, dang, we have like all these people. And then I was like, all right, cool. Who's available? I ended up calling my friend Rachel and I was like, Rachel, what are you up to? And she was like, well, I'm just finishing up my makeup just for fun. And I was like, okay, you want to come down to Eddie Sound and like do some photos? And so she was like, yeah. And so like, and then the fact that the dress was red and worked with her makeup already, I was like, this was meant to happen for whatever reason. And I had like friends who were coming down from Denver, everything. So I was just like, I hope this is going to work out. And from that photo shoot, I have my favorite photo that I've ever taken, which is we have this big parachute dress and Rachel has her hands cupped in front of her. And she's looking at the camera and there's lasers that are coming down that not only like go across the dress that kind of look like it's on fire in that way, but then the lasers in her hands, they're white and they're bouncing from her light or bouncing from her hands, reflecting light onto her face. So he already illuminates her face for me, which already looks sick. And then behind her, I use a tool called a Maggie light, which is basically it's an LED bar, but will allow you to put in images into it. So it will display the images one vertical line at a time, and it will do it in succession. And so then I'm just doing a circle behind her, creating these flames behind her, all on camera. And I was like, that was it. Like, this is amazing. Like,
It just
it all
worked
came
out.
together at the very end, and it didn't expect it. But that's how in my own experience, a lot of the time when that happens, that's when you get your best images.
I would agree. I would agree. It's those moments. What would be a good tip for anybody looking to start with light painting?
Mhm.
What's a great place to start? So to see if it's something that you like or don't like.
So with light painting, you can use any kind of tool that you want. Like if you don't have anything, use your cell phone flashlight, right? Just anything to get you started. You can do a lot with just that. Or if you just have a single flashlight, you can use it to, have your camera at a high f-stop, because I'm going for a starburst effect with that flashlight. And you can create a crown around someone just by creating those starbursts, right? You just have to make sure you angle that flashlight at the camera correctly. So really any kind of simple tool, you can download, it's called Color Flashlight, at least on Android. I think iPhone has it, but basically just makes the screen different colors. Or you can use Instagram stories and you can draw certain things on there with different colors to get different, if you want to do stripes or whatever, you can do that to create trails with that. There's a lot of different tools that you already have in your phone that you can use with that. And then if you don't have like a typical camera, you have just a phone. You have the Slow Shutter app, you have the Photo Gear app. There's a lot of free options out there to play with that. What I like about the Photo Gear app is, one, that it's free, but two, it also has a video light painting mode
Oh, wow.
into it, which is really, really cool. If you download it, because I recently had someone go through this, you go through the options, and then at the very end, it'll be in Chinese, and you'd be like, what does this mean? And it's basically just the typical, like, hey, asking permission to access to your camera, etc., so that I can do the stuff that it needs to do. But if you want to get started, that's what I would recommend doing.
No, that's great. Do you have any workshops or anything coming up in the future that our viewers can be, or any conferences you're attending?
Yeah. So other than later today at Peculiar Conference, I'll also be at WPPI in March doing a light painting workshop there. And pretty much just showing people hands-on, like, here's the different kinds of tools that you can use to create light paintings with. And I have a bunch of different tools like with me today, but like one of the best tools that I started with, and once you kind of get bored with the phone, then what I recommend is what Eric Pare is famous for, and he's like why I started light painting. And it's basically you get a fluorescent safety tube.
Okay.
You can get these from Home Depot for $3.50. They're also called a fluorescent safety protector. And basically, they go over fluorescent lights in case they break, and that's to catch the glass. But we use them for light painting. And what you can do is, as long as you get a flashlight that's small enough, it can fit in the tube. And then you put in some baking paper or parchment paper to diffuse the light. And then if you want a gel, and then that gives you basically a makeshift lightsaber. And this is a fantastic way to light paint. Great to, if you're working with like portraits, it's really, really good. You can probably make orbs and some other things, but it works best with portraits. But that's also like, it's super cheap tool to make.
Oh, it's at Home Depot too.
Yeah. Or you can go to like the dollar store, get some of those table toppers that have the tinsel, put them in a Sprite bottle, and then use a flashlight with that, and you can light paint with that. There's so many light painting tools you can just make at home that it's really like up to your imagination.
I agree. Yeah, sometimes we fall into that habit of buying gear, and sometimes it's as simple as using what's around you to light. Let me see. Anything on the stream? Nope, no questions. Do you have any questions for me?
Tell me about why'd you start the podcast? Like, tell me the history about that.
I went to a conference, imaging, about 2 years now.
Okay.
And it was my first conference. I didn't know anybody. And at first I'm overwhelmed because I decided to go to one of the largest ones. And I met a bunch of people there, a lot of photographers that turned out to be really honestly good people. I follow them on social media, YouTube, kind of you idolize people at some point.
Totally.
And you come to realize that they're just regular people. They may have a brand, they may have a persona, but at the end they're just people. And after a while, I started thinking to myself, man, I just want to showcase these people and talk to them and get other people to know them, because it's not about me. I just want to showcase people. And that's kind of what started to roll into what it is today. Just talking to people, getting to know them, and introducing people to new art that otherwise they may not know. That's really why.
Heck yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
That's great. So for you, so we talked a little bit about it earlier, but like what photography wise, not necessarily like what you do, but like what brings you joy?
What brings me joy? Underwater portraits bring me a lot of joy.
Yeah.
Because there's a challenging element to it, kind of like light painting, that if you pull it off, you get this massive reward at the end.
Totally.
And also headshots, funny enough. When people tell me that they don't like being in front of the camera, and then they see what I do and they love it, and then they put it as their profile photo.
Oh yeah, dude.
It is the best feeling.
That's
out
like
there.
crack, man.
Yeah,
right
it
there.
is.
You just feel like I did good enough.
I've had people that tell me I hate pictures. I don't like my picture taken. It happened recently when I went to an event in Louisville.
Yeah.
Every single person loved their image. And I'm like, fuck yeah.
Yeah, I'd be on cloud 9.
Yeah. So that's why I do it. So it's not just the artistic stuff. The business side of things, when I nail it, I love it.
Heck yeah.
So, well, I'm gonna wrap it up because I think we have another guest coming up.
Perfect.
But Russell, man, you're my first interview, my first test. It seems to work.
Heck yeah, dude.
Nonetheless, I'll be catching your talk. Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, man, of course.
Yeah,
Thanks
absolutely.
for having me.
You see how I end this now? Do I go end stream? End stream.
Nice.
Look at that handshake.
Hey.
Oh, I should probably stop recording that one right there, too.
Yeah, probably.